Hi, everyone. When we think about giving tip to our waiter or waitress at a restaurant, we look at the service they provided us. If he or she provided outstanding service, we tend to tip them over and beyond the normal 15% rate. Today, I would like to think about rating our healthcare providers and hospital services in the same manner. Are our doctors, nurses, staff, and administration folks providing us exceptional service? Granted, while we don't tip our healthcare services, we still need to pay close attention to their level of service when selecting our healthcare providers. For those of you who have seen my last few videos, I share that I've been busy visiting my ex-husband at hospitals and physical rehab centers as he is dealing with cancer. During the last several weeks, I've experienced all different qualities of service in the healthcare industry, and frankly, I'm disappointed to learn that there's very little accountability for the level of care provided. I wonder how the quality of service would improve if they were compensated by tips only. I realize the importance of expecting our healthcare providers to provide the best service. I think many of us naturally assume that we'll automatically receive good service because it relates to our health. However, we need to keep in mind that our hospitals and doctors are still running like a business. And sadly enough, many of our healthcare facilities are measuring their performance on the bottom line and therefore tend to be more profit driven instead of focusing on the quality of care given to their patients. So, keeping that in mind, it's critical that we become proactive and selective when choosing a healthcare provider for our health services. For today's discussion, I would like to talk specifically about the five key attributes of a great doctor. We can't assume all doctors are great and have their patients' best interests at heart. In fact, it's been disheartening from my recent observations that many doctors, as well as the hospitalists working in hospitals, view patients collectively rather than treat each patient as unique individuals. There's a sense of arrogance and and apathy with some of the doctors nowadays. They are there to collect a paycheck and don't want to think outside the box and go the extra mile, so to speak, to find creative solutions and customize special treatments tailored per each patient. Let me just say this again. There's a sense of arrogance and apathy with some doctors nowadays. They are there to collect a paycheck and don't want to think outside the box and go the extra mile, so to speak, to find creative solutions and customize special treatments tailored per each patient. Unfortunately, within these last few months, I have met a few doctors who I believe have become so complacent in their profession that they no longer trust or view their patients individually, but rather as a collective whole, working only within those narrow parameters as their guideline to treat all their patients. And any patient who falls outside of the collective whole is written off and disregarded. And that's exactly what happened with my ex-husband. He fell outside the norm of the collective and had severe side effects and adverse reactions to four of the medications the hospitalist had prescribed and caused my ex to hallucinate for 4 weeks. Even when I showed them medical articles online of several cases of patients who have also hallucinated from those specific medications, they ignored the facts and basically wrote off my ex as a patient who was near the end of his life. With enough complaining and prodding from my end, I finally got the doctors to stop the medications that were causing the hallucinations. And 4 weeks later, my ex stopped hallucinating and hasn't had any more hallucinations for the past 2 weeks. Folks, we need to wake up and stop assuming giving doctors or healthcare professionals a free pass to assume they're all great based on their educational level. Having several years of med school or training doesn't equate to great performance or service. Instead, I invite all of you to begin measuring the value of our doctor by of our doctors by um, excuse me, I'm sorry. Measuring the value of our doctors um, by having a service minded outlook like that of waiters and waitresses at a restaurant. After all, the healthcare industry is a service oriented organization to the public, and we need to do our due diligence to read reviews and evaluate the performance of our healthcare providers with the same measure we use when we are receiving service at a restaurant. So let's dive right in and talk about the 5 key attributes to a great doctor. Okay, so let me just stop right here. I think the main thing I do want to pass along to all of you from everything I've gone through the last several weeks is that I I think most of us tend to have this thinking that just because people that have become doctors or in that medical field, they've invested a lot of time and money into their education, and they are considered more educated than your average person. We tend to give a lot of we do tend to give them a free pass. Okay, we assume that just because they have invested more money and time in their education and they are more trained than the average person, we automatically assume that we're going to get great service from them, and that's a dangerous line of thinking because, as we all know, just like at a restaurant, not all waiters and waitresses are equal as far as their level of performance. And so I encourage and invite all of you to start thinking about the kind of doctors that we have chosen for ourselves. Uh, and we need to start looking at them from a service oriented outlook. Just like the way we would rate our level of service at a restaurant. I want us to start thinking in those terms of when we look at our doctors and or if for those of you who are still are have just moved to a new town and you're looking for a new doctor, right? I encourage you to take some time, and I want you to take the time, do your homework, go online, read the reviews, talk to the locals in your area, right, in your town. Find out who they have a doctor, who they would recommend. But it's important that we do our homework, and if you do choose a doctor, um, you can always make a new decision. If you pick a doctor and it doesn't work out, you can always pick another doctor, right? You're not tied to one doctor just because you selected somebody. So when you first meet a new doctor, you need to think about how the conversation went, how you feel. Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable conversing with this doctor? Right. Same thing as you would in a restaurant. Are you comfortable with the waiter and waitress? Do they meet your needs? Is the service they're providing, is a good service, right? And if that's the same, I want us to start thinking about this in the health realm as well. Is your doctor someone that you're comfortable with? Are they providing the level of service that you would expect, that you think you deserve, right? For you and your family. Okay. So having a service-minded um, mindset is what I would recommend when you start thinking about what kind of doctor you want. Okay. Okay. So the first key attribute, and there's five. The first one is hope. It's important for doctors to have a hopeful attitude, to be a beacon of hope for their patients. They need to take the initiative to find creative treatment plans to accommodate their patients. And that means doing whatever it takes sometimes to extend the quality of life and trying new innovative methods to possibly heal the patients. Currently, the mindset of these doctors is too rigid, black and white, and not enough of a gray area where there's a balanced approach. Meaning, instead of just exercising a curative or palliative mixture, um, excuse me, what? Okay, let me just say this again. Instead of just exercising a curative or palliative approach to terminal illness, why not think of combining the two approaches and finding a mixture of a curative and palliative treatment that works for each individual patient? Sure, it takes time, it takes more time to develop a solution, but is life not worth saving or prolonging? Especially in these cases where patients have the will to live. Miracles happen every day. We've all heard of patients that have been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and have been given a few months to live. And yet, given the patients who have a strong will to live and the right doctor who has hope, miracles can indeed happen. And many patients have outlived their death sentences. One way to tell if a doctor has hope is to ask them if he or she believes in miracles. Doctors who have faith will usually believe in miracles. And on the contrary, doctors who do not believe in miracles will tend to lack faith, have a black and white mindset, and will be quick to advocate hospice as the only solution for all terminally ill patients. So a doctor who has hope is one of the important keys to finding a great doctor. Okay, and I just want to say just briefly, this particular attribute it does hit home with me. As I'm dealing with my ex-husband and the myriad of doctors that are treating him, it has been very disappointing to have seen and observed that a lot of these doctors don't have faith. Then while they may have a lot of knowledge and they're very trained and skilled, they lack faith, folks. They don't believe in miracles. Okay? They'll be the first to tell your loved one who's terminally ill that they have X amount of months to live or years and that they should consider hospice. So it's very I find that really shocking. It was I was in complete horror to witness this kind of response and advice and reaction from these doctors when they went and diagnosed my ex-husband. The way they communicated and how coldly they communicated, and what really struck me was just their overall sense of lack of faith. Not one of them was encouraging or even entertained the possible idea of let's just go for the best, let's hope for the best. And especially my ex-husband, he has a will to live. Okay, so I would expect these doctors to be more compassionate and be in favor and help him through this process. Whether or not it works or not, it's worth a try, folks. You know, if someone has the will to live, and they're willing to at least try, I think the doctors need um, to to acquiesce to that desire and help maintain a hopeful attitude. Okay. Um, so the next four attributes will be described by the letters that spell the word hope. HOPE. H for humble. The second key attribute to look for is humility. Is your doctor humble? Does he seem arrogant and act superior like a know it all? You can always spot arrogant doctors by their dismissive responses when you offer up different ideas and share your knowledge from online resources and medical literature that you researched. An arrogant doctor will feel threatened and discount your findings immediately. However, a humble doctor will be more open minded and welcome the sharing of medical knowledge. So, humility is an attribute to look for when looking for a great doctor. Okay, the next one, O for optimistic. The third key attribute is being optimistic. Having an optimistic attitude can help lift the heavy spirits of patients and the families of patients when the doctor thinks and acts in a positive manner. Having an optimistic attitude, having an optimistic attitude and a can-do spirit will help encourage a patient to be optimistic as well, especially when patients have been told they are terminally ill with no cure. Sometimes it just takes one person to be that voice of optimism that encourages a patient to persevere and be hopeful of a favorable, miraculous outcome. Okay, I read a fascinating article online about surviving cancer published at the Stanford Center for Integrative Medicine. The article was written by Dr. Ernest Rosenbaum and his wife Isadora Rosenbaum. The title is The Will to Live. The title of the article is The Will to Live. He was an oncologist and his wife was a medical assistant and had co-written many of the books he has written. He had written over 25 books about how to survive cancer treatments and how to live after cancer. In his article, The Will to Live, he writes, quote unquote, sometimes the biology of a cancer will dictate the course of events regardless of the patient's attitude and fighting spirit. These events are often beyond our control, but patients with positive attitudes are better able to cope with the disease-related problems and may respond better to therapy. Many physicians have seen how two patients of similar ages with the same diagnosis, degree of illness, and treatment program experience vastly different results. Let me say this again. Many physicians have seen how two patients of similar ages and with same diagnosis, degree of illness, and treatment program experience vastly different results. One of the few apparent differences is that one patient is pessimistic and the other is optimistic. Okay. I believe that optimism works both ways. When a doctor can lead with an optimistic attitude, it can positively impact the rest of the organization and especially influence optimism in their patients. It has been said that a smile is contagious, and I personally think an optimistic attitude is contagious as well, and a must have added attribute for a great doctor. P for proactive. The fourth key attribute is being proactive. Being proactive is not procrastinating, waiting to be reminded to take action, or being non communicative. Being a great doctor is being thoughtful and decisive about taking the initiative to always ensure the safety and well being of a patient. Many malpractice lawsuits center around the issue of gross negligence, where doctors fail to do the right thing, take appropriate actions because of laziness, forgetfulness, and or carelessness. And you know what? I do want to add another word in here. And sometimes I hate to say this, but sometimes it is a matter of just incompetence. Um, I'd say the majority of the doctors in the medical field are competent. But unfortunately, like you hear about these some of these horror stories in the newspaper that sometimes people come across doctors who are not that competent, uh, and those are the ones that usually end up getting sued for malpractice. So I just want to throw that out there. Um, in Wikipedia online, quote unquote, gross negligence refers to a severe lack of care that shows a reckless disregard for the safety or lives of others, going beyond simple carelessness. It can lead to higher legal liability and is often associated with serious consequences, such as punitive damages in some cases. Where being proactive, quote unquote, refers to taking initiative and acting in anticipation of future problems, needs, or changes, rather than just reacting to situations as they arise. It involves planning ahead and making decisions to create positive outcomes or prevent negative ones. When doctors exhibit an intentional effort to quickly take action to improve a patient's life, it's providing the patients with a high degree of confidence and reassurance. They are in good hands. Let me say this again. When doctors exhibit an intentional effort to quickly take action to improve a patient's life, it's providing the patients with a high degree of confidence and reassurance they are in good hands. Being proactive is essential for doctors to build trust with their patients. When doctors are proactive, their patients feel valued and feel they can depend on them to do the right thing. They feel they can rely on their doctors to always have the best interest, safety, and well being at heart. Thus, it is not a coincidence that all great doctors share this key attribute of being proactive. E for empathetic. The fifth key attribute is to find a doctor who is empathetic. Having empathy is what compassion is all about. For doctors, in my opinion, it's not enough to have the knowledge to treat illnesses, but it's equally important to have the bedside manners to be empathetic to their patients. When patients are not feeling well or have a terminal illness, showing empathy goes a long way to making the patients feel cared for and loved. People facing challenges in life, like battling with a terminal illness, they may often feel alone and fearful. But the doctors can help bridge this gap by going the extra mile to show genuine concern, to ease worry and alleviate fear. And most importantly, just like being proactive is essential to building trust in relationships, as I previously mentioned, being empathetic is also equally necessary to build trust between a doctor and a patient. In a San Francisco newsletter on September 26, 2010, Dr. Ernest Rosenbaum was noted as an oncologist who rarely made house calls and who was known to invite his patients and their families to his home to eat for dinner. Dr. Rosenbaum wanted not just to cure the people he cared for, but to give them the best quality of life possible. I'm going to stop right here. When I read this, I was completely floored. I was really amazed how this oncologist went as far as to invite his patients over to eat. That's just awesome. I don't know any doctors that would do something like that. And I think, that's part of being a great doctor is when you not only treat the patients as patients, but you also treat them as friends, as personal friends that you actually invite to your house. And actually, it's almost like treating them as family. So, that's really a remarkable kind of doctor, and I was really impressed to read about that. Dr. Rosenbaum died September 7th at his home in San Francisco. He was 81. Ernie had boundless energy and commitment to to his patients, said Dr. David Spiegel, a Stanford psychiatrist who worked with Dr. Rosenbaum on opening the Cancer Support Center there. He opened a survivorship program in 1970, and he was 30 years ahead of his time, Spiegel said. The idea that you had to help people survive the after effects of treatment and give them emotional support, it was like your dream of a great oncologist. Folks, let's make that dream our reality and make every effort to look for a great doctor for ourselves and for others. In summary, we need more great doctors like Dr. Ernest Rosenbaum in the world. While finding a great doctor is not an easy task, we can increase our chances by diligently doing our homework to remember the 5 key attributes of a great doctor. Okay? So let me just repeat the 5 attributes again. The first one is being hope, a doctor who has hope. The second is humble. The third is optimistic. The fourth is proactive. And the fifth is empathetic. Okay? So um I I just wanted I felt really strong about communicating this to all of you. This is not my usual typical video that I do on relationships. However, given the experiences and the things I've gone through in the last several weeks, while standing by my ex-husband as he's going through all these treatments for his health, his health and the illnesses. These are some of the things I've been learning along the way and experiencing, and I just felt it was valuable to share it with all of you. And I like everyone else. I never thought about what a great doctor was. Right? I would just go with people's recommendations, or um, I just like everyone. I just automatically assume that most doctors are competent and uh, never really gave it a lot of thought. But I think given what I've seen now, I think it's very crucial for all of us to take a step back and really think about the kind of doctors that we want in our lives, that we want treating ourselves and our loved ones. It's really important that you have a doctor that has your best interest in mind. And I still think the most important attribute is having the hope. um, Folks, it's just a matter of time before we all get old, and we all going to have some health issues, right? And if we get old enough, we all may experience some life threatening diseases or illnesses, and when those situations happen, it's especially important that uh, we are with we are in communication with a doctor who has our best interests at heart, right? We don't want someone that doesn't have hope. We don't want someone that keeps speaking negative uh, thoughts over us, and are quick to write us off, especially for those of us who have the will to live. And we know we all have heard of miracles that have happened to many people where they had the will to live, and with the right optimistic mindset, they were able to survive some of the toughest treatments, whether it's chemotherapy, radiation, or whatever. They were able to survive those cancer treatments, and 20, 30 years later, they're still alive. Okay, so and as I mentioned, okay, I've realized that a lot of these doctors now, they have a black and white mindset. It's either curative or palliative. Okay, and basically what that just means is curative is having finding a treatment that can cure something, and palliative is just giving comfort, providing treatments that would just aid in the comfort of the patient while going through treatment. Okay, which is usually done when it's near the end of life, or in a hospice type of situation where you're just managing the pain, okay, the comfort and pain of the patient. But I'm proposing there is a balance. We could strike a balance. It's not always black and white, folks. There's a gray area, right? Not everyone is it's not always black and white, especially in the medical field. You have patients who 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 may have the willpower, and they can forge ahead, and they can and if given enough effort by the doctors, they can come up with a tailored treatment plan for each individual that has maybe a combination of curative and palliative, right? Why not have both? So it just boggles my mind that, some of our doctors are not that open-minded, and it's just a very black and white approach to how they want to treat treat their patients. And so, I just invite all of us to have more of an open mind, and to seriously assess the doctors that we come in contact with, and think about, if those 5 qualities that we talked about today are there. Okay? So, anyway, folks, if you like this video, please click like and click share. Um, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel so you can be updated on all my future videos. And I want to say to all of you, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon again. Okay? Alrighty. Bye.